Broadcasting live from the hive of the Eye Tyrant on the plane of the Forgotten Realms. This is Tap Tap Concede. Welcome, everybody, to Tap Tap Concede. My name is Graham. Joining me is Cameron and Nelson. And today, we're doing a Q&A episode, because it's about that time. Because we'll be talking about a whole lot more Innistrad Midnight Hunt and Historic Horizons in the very near future. But before we do that, a reminder that we are brought to you by Card Kingdom. Please check out cardkingdom.com/LRR. Buy your cards there. It's great. You'll be able to order, like I said, Midnight Hunt very soon. And if you tell them loading ready run send me, button please, they'll give you a little 1-inch button, which I have just received word is our newest one. Lands in front, party in the back.
I love that so much. I'm so happy that that happens. That's a Wheelerism, isn't it?
I cannot remember.
I hate it with every fiber of my being. Like first we're gonna like compare our game that we love, that we cherish, to a hairstyle that makes me like kind of get a little bit like I have to throw up in my throat. and then we're also gonna we're gonna combine that with like one of the worst things that you can do while you're playing. It's so bad, it's perfect. Actually, I respect it. I'll say that, but it does make me want to like uninstall.
I won't be able to look at it without wincing, and I'm just into it.
I just love the mental image of a guy with a mullet doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe Dirt shows up to a Grand Prix round 1. He's on whatever land destruction is possible. Like, it's standard, and he doesn't do anything till turn 4 and then starts demolishing your lands.
Their opponent's just like, well, it lands in front, and then just as a response, just party in the back. Like, it's just...
In game 2, he calls a judge over 5 times during the match just to like ask if something that you did is legal. It's totally fine, but he just keeps calling the judge over, and then like gets visibly tilted, and then after the match asks if you want to go for a beer, and you're just like, what is happening? Wow, I have a range of emotions about this button.
I love it. The show is also brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. But I also really enjoy this narrative we're creating. All right, well, let's get right into it. James put the call out on Twitter for some questions, and here are those questions that will be followed by our answers that we have not prepared in advance. And I say that in case there are moments of Basilisk18 says, do you think it's fair to not want to play against a deck that is primarily about stealing your stuff and using it against you, specifically in the context of online webcam play where tracking the board state becomes much more difficult?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So I was actually with you before the caveat. I was like, yeah, it's totally fair to not want to play against decks that just steal your stuff and use it against you. Oh, in that context. Oh, that's just logic.
I really felt this one like as soon as the pandemic started, and we've done online Commander, a bunch, and I just have this Gonti deck that was like Gonti, Lord of Luxury, is like the card that make me start actually having fun in Commander. Like, I've only played Commander a few times before starting to kind of regularly play it on FNPF, or maybe like 10 or 20 times. But like my beginning of my career with Commander was this: I would play it like once or twice a year whenever I was sort of press ganged into it, and I would just be like, okay, I'll play multiplayer Magic with you. This isn't what I do. This isn't how I usually have fun with the game, but like I'll do it for this reason or that reason. And then I discovered playing Gonti, Lord of Luxury, and I just started playing like every Tuesday night for several months. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, damn, I'm gonna struggle to try to find another deck that's as fun.
Yeah, we have it comes up sometimes when we're playing the pre-constructed decks, because we don't like swap any cards out. But when we're doing our own Commander decks for Friday Night Paper Fight, again, during the pandemic, we do have like a gentle person's agreement of like, please don't include mind control or, like Thief of Sanity, cards that involve pulling things out of your opponent's deck and putting them on your board. And it still comes up from time to time, but we try not to make it a big feature precisely because it's difficult to track, especially since like it's difficult to track for the players. We're also putting on a show for the viewers, and it's difficult for them as well.
Yeah, this is always a tricky conversation to have. I remember having this conversation with people back when I played like Warhammer and War Machine, to a lesser extent there, but just like, man, this list is not fun. And we can do this, but, I might start to bring the ruckus too, right? It's like Clausewitz said, the war escalates all the time, right? It never voluntarily de-escalates. But these are conversations that occasionally you need to have, where you can just say, I don't enjoy playing against this deck. I would rather not do that anymore. And normalize doing that in gaming. Hell, normalize doing that in life. Just being like, yeah, you know what? I'm not feeling it. You're allowed to dislike things.
Yeah, maybe I'm not going to go to the gym today and just acknowledge that I just don't want to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think in this case, it's also just like, it's just practical.
Yeah. Very.
Yeah.
Very. Right. Yeah. The practical thing during the pandini is like, this is a pain to deal with. It's logistically a pain, and it is difficult for everyone, and I don't know, insisting on it feels like you're just trying to get in your friends' heads. But that's projecting.
Yeah, I sympathize with these players that you have to have these tough conversations with, though. As the Gonti guy, it's like I even just made Valky a deck after Cobbletown came out, and that was still during the pandemic. And I was just like, well, I just really like this card, and I've played several online Commander games with Valky, but it's like the same exact thing. So that also has gotten taken apart. And yeah, I don't know if you're like me and this is your poison in Commander. I think it's important though to recognize both during the era of webcam Commander and Spell Table and just in general, like, hey, if your friends don't like playing against it and it's no fun for them, like, why bother? Like, what are we here for? You know, you're not winning a Commander tournament. You should just be like at the table so that you and your friends have fun. So recognize that. /end rant.
Moving on to question 2 from Ogier300. Which evergreen mechanic is your favorite?
Windmill slam cycling. Actually, I
Pretty
don't know
cool
if
as
cycling
cycling.
counts as evergreen, but it should be because it's good.
Cycling counts as wintergreen because it's, it's usually around. You can usually find it in like an OP4 or something. If that's your
Yeah.
favorite gum, you can usually get it.
It's refreshing. It's, versatile. Wintergreen. Love it.
I like flying a lot. Is that too boring an answer? It's been like almost 30 years and I still think people undervalue flying.
I mean, I was going to say flying just because
Darn.
it's no. I agree with you. It's very straightforward. It's like this creature flies, so that creature can't block it because this creature is flying over top. Oh, but that creature is large enough that it can reach it. Okay, that makes sense.
Makes a lot of intuitive sense.
I guess maybe a more true, like you're the boss, so you can have flying. There's like a probably more honest answer that's sort of doesn't count like cycling, where it's like just cards that say, or maybe I could just go with prowess. I could say prowess. I do like prowess a lot. They've made it an evergreen mechanic now. But what I really like is when something happens that cares about instants and sorceries. And that seems to always be around. Like usually it's in red and blue, but sometimes other colors care about instant sorceries too. And I generally just feel like I'm having more fun playing Magic if what I'm doing is ignoring the normal part of it where you're supposed to summon monsters to attack your opponent, and instead just like doing a bunch of prestidigitation and, making colorful explosions happen in the background that probably don't lead to you winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't have anything further to add.
Flying's really good. It's better than you think it is, even though you know it's good.
Next question from Xanalath says, what is something you're surprised hasn't been updated in Arena?
My ability to buy the Jace puppet. I would 100% buy the Jace. Hi, my name is Cameron, and I regret not buying the Jace puppet when I had the opportunity.
Is it not available now?
I don't think it is.
Oh,
I've looked.
What a shame. That horrible homunculus.
Yeah, I think Battle Pass rewards would be good. I missed buying like the Call Time stickers, and I missed buying the Zendikar stickers, and I regret.
The best sticker that they've ever made is still the one of Will Kenrith trying to work out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really like 2 out of the 3 from AFR. Like I really like Eliwick jamming away grumpily at you, like she's got her frog and she's like, strumming on her lute or whatever, but it's like with this like grumpy energy. And then there's this tilted out. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like the evil laugh, like I got you beholder, but I only ever use it to be like, you top decked me. Okay, I'm dead. You got me. Rah.
I definitely think that beholder is more sort of like maniacal, but
All right.
But I love that the Eliwick sticker is a reference to Road to El Dorado.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that. I haven't seen that movie.
Honestly, I haven't either, but I've seen a lot of memes from it. It definitely struck a chord with like a couple years of of our peers there.
Nice.
That wasn't meant to be a musical pun, but I guess it was. I mean, if I'm being completely honest with this question, a spectator mode is what I'm frankly flabbergasted still after this long of a pandemic that they still don't have a proper spectator mode.
I think it has to not be. Is there an article where they come out and said like when the pandemic's over we'll be able to get spectator mode? I feel like at this point Arena's been out for so long now that it's just like a priority. Like it's not something they want to bother with.
I was saying that because of the pandemic, with everything moving to Arena, all premier play being on Arena, I'm surprised they didn't fast track a spectator mode. At this point, it's clear they just do not care about it. That it's like this is not a priority for us. probably ever. And I think that's wrong, but they've decided they don't want to do it, clearly, and that's the one thing that I still think is desperately missing from Arena.
I'm gonna, lurk into the comments later. Tell me why you listening believe they haven't done it. If you have like some sort of legal explanation, or if it's actually something that's difficult to code. I know other games do it. I think ideally you just have a setting where you're like, either anyone can watch my games, or like only the people on my friends can watch my games. So you have permissions for it, right? And then, it just seems like the community gets so much out of there being a spectator mode. Like, it produces so much good in terms of like updates to the game. It's flabbergasting. Yeah, it's surprising and frustrating that it hasn't come yet.
Next question from Yamahako says, what is one positive you will take out of the adaptations you've had to make in your MTG content due to the pandemic? I mean, the way that, following directly on from that last question, the way that Paul has come up with a broadcast solution for showing Arena, very similar to the way that Wizards does, but with the moving bar up and down, so you can see one player's whole battlefield and the other player's hand. That's very useful. And in situations where, even after the pandemic, if we do anything on Arena, like more gladiator games or things of that kind, then, that'll be very nice to have.
Yeah, like Paul has done some brilliant work. But as for other, like, more game-related things, I'm really struggling to come up with anything.
Yeah. It's playing paper Magic has a lot of advantages.
Yeah.
Recording this podcast in person has some advantages too.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. But yeah, no, I think if I was to take one thing out of the Pandini, it is an appreciation for how much the actual physical presence of my friends matters to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that we've continued to produce so much content, because it means, like, say, if someone's sick, or if someone's like, I'm in Texas right now, I'm like visiting with my in-laws. I'm not in the same city as Cam and Graham. Like, and if we're in that situation, we can still produce the content. Like, if Graham, if you end up going to like a PAX Australia again, or any reason why we can't otherwise meet in person, we have the ability to do these Arena streams and these podcasts. So, like, that's cool. We can lean on it in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Also, yeah, Paul's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it would be great. This with nachos.
Mm-hmm.
And
if we could develop some sort of like artificial intelligence, machine learning, noise canceling algorithm to only take out the sound of nachos being eaten, so that we can still communicate without just like boring a hole in our listeners' ears.
Yeah, all right. Paul, get on it. Okay, handled it.
Love it.
You're welcome, everyone. I did it.
Thank you, Cameron.
How do you balance? This is the next question from Distract Delude. Yeah, it's not Distracted Lude, it's Distract Delude. Anyway, how do you balance your spending on MTG with other hobbies? I also collect various Games Workshop things, which are not cheap, and wrestling DVDs and merch as well. This year, I've been thinking I should just quit MTG, as the sheer volume of products is too high and cost prohibitive. That's an interesting question. I mean, a lot of that obviously is going to come down to your personal things. I'm not going to be like, yeah, you should quit Magic so you can buy more wrestling gear. That's up to you. But to your question, how do you balance spending MTG on other hobbies? My hobbies are mostly what I do for work.
Yeah.
Like Magic. I mean, Magic included. Magic, I think, is probably the hobby that I do for work that I most also do for fun outside of work. So, there's that. And I do spend personal money on it. But, like what are my other hobbies? I don't know, there's video editing, making jokes. So those I'm in an awkward spot to reply, because it's like, well, for my Magic hobby, I'll spend some money on it, and for my video editing hobby, the office will buy tapes or a camera. That said, I try not to spend like too much on Magic, because you're right, there's this massive amount of Magic. So it's like it's picking and choosing. Magic is huge, and you don't have to engage with every part of it. Just because they release a product doesn't mean you have to buy every single product, and I absolutely do not buy every single product. I put a chunk of change into Arena every so often, and physical cards that I like, that I think are neat, or I'll buy a product that it seems like it would be fun to open or whatever, but I'm certainly not, like, well, new set's out, got to buy a booster box.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the same boat. I comb through sets and find the singles that I want, and then I just buy those singles instead of buying sealed product. And then, if I want to draft, then I draft and then I flip those cards. Yeah, because like none of these hobbies are cheap, right? They've all been kind of calibrated to take up roughly the same amount of money, which is all of your money.
Yeah, because you're in the Magic and the Games Workshop.
Yeah, yeah. And let me tell you, Games Workshop spending is a lot easier to control when you're like, I am not allowed to buy something until I have painted my last thing. Because in Games Workshop, Warhams have a term that they refer to as the shame pile, which I might believe is borrowed from scale modelers, right? Like my shame pile occupies the entire acreage under my bed. And that is just the product that you buy, you take the shrink wrap off of, you examine, you put the lid back on, and then you're like, well, that's done for now.
Not even a white coat, hey?
Not even.
I know that feeling.
All right. I want to weigh in with like the person who's I'm going to guess has spent the most on MTG. I don't know if I have the best collection, but I've probably spent the most on Magic between the three of us. And if you're going to get into the like constructed land where you're actually playing more than one deck in a format per season or whatever, right? Like you want to be able to switch decks, or you want to have multiple decks ready to go in case the metagame seems like it favors the one that you weren't playing just this last week. It favors a different deck, and you want to catch up. You want to be like on the cutting edge of the metagame, which I think is the position that costs the most, other than just being the like rich collector. Like if your position in MTG is I need to own everything, which your question kind of seems to imply, I would quit. Actually, I think you shouldn't do that. You might need to like just examine why it is that you feel you need to own every Magic card, because that's not necessarily healthy. But going back, say you're just trying to enjoy, you play a ton and you're trying to make sure that you have the best chance to win, and so you're paying to do that and you're aware of that, but you do enjoy and you play with your cards. Yeah, I would say like just make sure that your dollars continue to offer you some enjoyment for your hobby. Like, Cam just talked about the shame pile, and similarly, don't just go out and buy like 4 of all the new Chase Mythics because you suspect they're going to be in a deck you're going to play, because people do that, and like sometimes it works out great. Sometimes they get the Okos for $10 before they're worth 60 or something, and then they play them for the 6 weeks that they're able to, and that's fine, and then they still sell them for 20. But most of the time when you spend money on a card that's not immediately going into a deck, that's some wasted money, because you will have the opportunity to buy that card later when you do need it. So yeah, that's my little piece of advice. That, and like try to get some decks built that you're going to get lots of use out of, and then just update them as you need to. Canadian Highlander is great for this.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my strategy for controlling Magic spending was not playing Standard anymore.
Yeah, Standard's tough. Standard is the one that's calibrated to make you spend the most money. It's also just sort of the easiest entry point, though. I do still believe that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with, like, Standard was interesting because I like working with a limited palette, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it's really fun. Like some Standard formats are great. This last couple of years haven't been my favorites, but I have enjoyed some Standard formats a great deal, and didn't feel bad that I bought $200 worth of Baneslayer Angels and then sold them for like $30 total or something silly, But yeah, you have to make sure that like you are getting just only buy the cards you're playing, basically, is the short version.
Next question from Connor Vezina says, what's one Magic set that you personally love that you don't think gets as much attention as it deserves? As Wheeler and I have talked about on various pieces of Magic content, we are, I believe, 2 of the dozen of people who very much enjoyed Avacyn Restored Limited. So I will talk about that for a while.
I didn't know you were on that bench.
Yeah, it's just me and him in Victoria, I think.
Yeah,
maybe
I thought it was
maybe
just
one
him.
other person.
All right.
Look, if you can get Cathar's Crusade, it's all over after that.
Yeah, there's lots of things in that format, that set, that make you go, it's all over.
I don't know. I had a lot of fun and success with the format. I don't know what to tell you. I can't necessarily defend it. It's one of those things where it's like, look, I know it's not great, but I love it.
Are you most hoping to? Oh, you bought that original art, don't you? You have that. You have the uncommon Cathar's Crusade too, don't you? The like 4 mana creature fall Golden Age Commander. It's like creature fall. You get +1/+1 for all your creatures.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up real quick. You would think, since as you mentioned, I have the original art of it in my house, you'd think that I would know exactly what it did offhand. But I actually bought it largely because it was available and very pretty. Yeah, 3 and a white for a 2/2 human cleric soldier. Cleric soldier. Interesting.
Neat.
Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. So yes, so that's what it does. Yeah, Chris Round was selling his original oil paintings for preposterously low because this was years ago. This was years and years ago at like our first GP Vancouver, and I think I got it for like $400.
Nice.
And I was like, hell yeah, original art. That's worth that's worth the investment. And it's still, yeah, it's very pretty. Kathleen got it framed for me for a present, and the framing is beautiful too.
So I didn't like that format and wasn't very successful at it. I thought I had a handle on it, and then after watching Wheeler draft some more, I was like, no, I just don't. Even at the end of the format, I'm like, I don't quite get where these archetypes stack up in terms of power level, and I don't understand the pick order. So I found that archetype frustrating, that format frustrating. But I miss, and it's just been a long time, but I miss Shards of Alara and the ensuing sets. I played it a lot. I played the constructed block format a bunch. I had a really dumb Nicol Bolas deck that I couldn't stop playing because I just enjoyed the fact that Nicol Bolas was a planeswalker, and I wanted to try to get it in play and do mean things with it, but it was always a little bit slower, and the Elspeth decks were always killing me, or the fast decks. But I did pretty well at a PTQ for the sealed format of just Shards of Alara, and then I just found the Alara Reborn set to be really fun. Like, it was just like, oh, these cards, these commons are so powerful. Like the kind of feeling of the third set landing was so satisfying and really just kind of made everything else kind of sparkle, which doesn't always happen. A lot of times it's like the big set in September is like the best one, and then the other two sets, like, okay, I gotta try to cobble together a draft deck out of the like worst stuff they give us in the next two sets. I feel like Theros is a good example of that. I think Kamigawa was also a good example of that. I think Mirrodin was a pretty good example of that, where it's like all the kind of juice, like the best stuff is in the first set, but not the case on the Shards of Alara block. So I miss drafting that set a little bit, or maybe it's just been long enough and I've forgotten why I hate it so much, but but I would sign up for a full Shards of Alara block draft if it was affordable.
Sweet. Cameron, do you have a...
Eldritch Moon.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. This one landed for me hard. It's got a few of my favorite cards in it, like Voldaran Pariah. Just an unspeakably sweet card. I'm a big fan of Madness, and I loved Emerge.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. It just hits all my check boxes, and I want more of it. I'm very excited to go back to Innistrad, even though I don't. It's going to break my heart by not having Emerge, I believe.
I'm hoping that new Innistrad will give you something you like.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be something there, but it's not going to be the same. But I don't know. I just really enjoyed Eldritch Moon Limited. It had fun mechanics. It had cool cards. I did quite well at it, I think, relatively. It made me happy. Not sure I have anything else to add to it, but yeah, no, it was good.
Sweet. Next question from Why Harry is, what are your favorite promo cards or promo treatments?
I really liked the Eldraine storybook treatments, but I mean, do I have to say the Strixhaven Japanese cards?
God, those are so pretty.
They are. I spent way too much money. Like, I know I just said, like, you only buy your singles, but I wound up buying 2 collector's boxes of Strixhaven.
Oh, wow.
And opening them on stream.
Way to go.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, you want to talk about value tanking? We can talk about value tanking. But
I really like the MPR full arts. They did Lightning Bolt that they would just send you in the mail, and then later they did a similar one for going to a Grand Prix, and I like both of those full art Lightning Bolts a lot. But they also gave you, this is back around Shards of Alara time, dating myself here, paper boomer, but they sent you like Blightnings and Cryptic Command. Cryptic Command's kind of a terrible one because there's so many words on it. Should have been made textless. But there were like, you could play this deck that was like mostly cards that the Wizards would send you in the mail just for playing F&M. Like, they gave you Savage Lands in the mail, which are just like a kind of cheap card to get anyway. So is Blightning, but still, it's like your deck looks cooler. And then Bloodbraid Elves, and those were like $5 sometimes, depending on like what deck was the hottest, as well as Terminate. And so it was like a lot of the deck you could kind of cobble together of the cards they just sent you in the mail for showing up and playing. And I liked the Texas Blightning a lot.
Yeah, these were the old textless cards with the slight rounded border in it.
Yeah, just the full art, or not all the way to the full bleed of the edge like the Unhinged Lands or anything, but there was like a thin border.
Yeah, there's one of like Tidings that's just like a bottle being dropped.
That's right.
Yeah, I think I've got a cancel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a handful of those. I have like Searing Blaze and Incinerate and ones like that. I think I got Kathleen a Damnation of
Nice.
that for her commander deck at some point.
Yeah, they did a whole bunch. That and the Magic Player Rewards was a program that lasted for, I want to say, close to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty sweet. You know, you just like showed up, you had a DCI number, like, and then you just filled out a form that was like your DCI number connected to your address. And then every season or so, you get some cards in the mail.
Mm-hmm. I like the black on black with spot color planeswalkers that they did at Comic-Con for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are sweet.
Those are very cool. I'm just looking through a list of promo cards, and I didn't realize that they did an entire cycle of the Chinese Zodiac.
Oh, yeah. What was that? They were in Portal, right?
I don't know. I don't know when this was released, but it's like Zodiac Dog is a 2/2 for 3 with Mountain Walk. Zodiac Pig is a 3/3 for 4 with Swamp Walk. Zodiac Goat is a 1/1 for 1 with Mountain Walk. They have dog, pig, goat, snake, rat, ox, horse, tiger, rabbit, monkey.
Huh.
I had no idea. I don't know when this is Magic Online. Oh no, these were all in P3K. I had never seen them before. They're showing up in the promo search because they were done as Magic Online promos at some point.
Oh yeah, there's been all kinds of weird Magic Online promos that many people don't even know about.
No. Honestly, I also really like the old border. I think that's cool.
Oh, the new promos, Time Spiral and
Yeah.
AFR, yeah. Or at Modern Horizons too, I mean.
Next question from the Shard Chatter is, are there any particular, quote, failed or forgotten mechanics you wish would get a return or revamp? I mean, Cameron already mentioned Emerge. I'd like to see Emerge. I don't think Emerge failed at all, but, you know, perhaps forgotten because it was only in Eldritch Moon, but I would like to see Emerge come back.
From the same set, right? Like there's only 3 cards with Meld.
Yeah, Meld.
Or 6 cards, but like 3? That's the total number that we get? Come on, we got to bring Meld back at some point.
I also really liked Splice. I thought Splice onto Arcane was kind of cool.
Splice did kind of come back recently, right?
Yeah, it did come back, didn't it? It was in Modern Horizons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been given a little bit more treatment. Not a ton.
Same kind of thing, actually, was Ninjutsu, which I don't think qualifies as failed or forgotten by any stretch of the imagination, so I should probably amend that. But it's gotten very limited treatment, but I think it's just a really fun mechanic.
Yeah, I'm sure there are others that I can't think of because they're forgotten, but
yeah,
that's the first thing that came to mind.
I feel like we could have done more with Bolster. Like Bolster did do a bunch of things and you could get a good Bolster deck, but I wonder if there's more depth to Bolster. I thought it was a pretty cool one. It's like straightforward, but yeah.
Yeah, that was the Dramoka mechanic.
No, so it was another B where Bolster was the first one from like the Abzan houses, like in the Cons of Tarkir, the first set. And it was just like, you can pay mana and tap this creature and put a +1/+1 counter on it, but only as a sorcery. So like, I wonder if...
that's Outlast.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said Bolster. I was thinking Outlast. Okay. So Bolster was the other one. That's so funny. Bolster is the one where you have to put a +1/+1 counter on the creature with the lowest toughness you have?
Yes.
Okay, so clearly I like both of them. Good. But yeah, I was trying to think of Outlast. That's so funny. Actually, let me just correct you. No, I'm the one who's wrong. Good. Oh, I see. Oh, good. Anyways, so the one where you're at sorcery have to choose to tap your creature for the next combat step, like the next whole turn cycle to put a +1/+1 counter or not. I just felt like it was a really interesting but simple, choice of how to spend your resources.
Yeah.
So I remember liking that mechanic. And if they did more things like, when this bolsters, there's a triggered ability or like some sort of bolster lord that makes them all have 2 +1/+1 counters and then try to balance that kind of thing. Like that could be cool.
Got word from James here. Bring back Epic or Riot.
Oh, yeah.
Epic was a cycle. There was only 5 of them from Saviors of Kamigawa. There was 5 of them, each at rare, 1 for each color, that had this. They were a sorcery that did something, and then they had this ability called Epic, which is for the rest of the game, you can't play spells. So you don't get to do anything else for the rest of the game. But at the beginning of each upkeep, you get to copy this spell. So you get to do this spell every turn, but you can't do anything else.
You can still attack and use your permanents, activate abilities and stuff, but you can never cast a spell again besides this one.
Yeah, and there's no way to reverse that.
No.
So, yeah, I remember because James had Endless Swarm in his snake commander deck, which was you put a 1/1 green snake into play for each card in your hand. So just every turn, like I think he would set up that he had no maximum hand size, right? And so just every turn he's like, all right, upkeep, make 8 snakes, attacks, go. Next question from Ninja with a RPG. Says, what set was your first ever draft?
I think it might have been Scars of Mirrodin.
That's also my answer, yeah.
Onslaught Legion Scourge.
Dang. Onslaught Legion Scourge. Nice. Yeah, I think one of my first drafts, Jeremy Petter was like, oh, we should draft on Magic Online. And I was like, what? And, first time drafting, first time using Magic Online for drafting, did not understand. I was like, whoa, hey, no, we take the card and then we pass the, what's going on? What? We did okay, I think.
Ooh, I have a second answer, actually.
Yeah.
It doesn't say draft tournament. That's what's implied, obviously, like what we mean by a booster draft where people pass packs around and then play. I also was reminded of another story. I got to spend some time with family after, many months of not getting to do that. And my uncle reminded me of our first drafts would ever do, where we would split a box of Revised, which we did a few times, or split a few packs. And so he would explain the concept of drafting to me. This is when I'm 12. And there was only one card in my collection that I wanted for my collection that I didn't have yet. And I don't know, I never bought singles and just traded with people and only bought packs, which is pretty common, I think, among children. And I get it. I sympathize, but that's wrong. You should just skip buying 2 packs and then buy the card you want. Anyways, so my uncle opens the Vesuvan Doppelganger, and obviously it's the best card in the pack, so he takes it, and I just start bawling. And then eventually he's like, okay, I'll take a different card from the pack. So weaponizing my tears early on in my Magic career. I haven't really brought that one back, but it was really effective. So, watch out. Tune into FNPF sometime. Someone goes to attack me, I might just start crying instead and hope that they attack someone else on
Brilliant.
Commander Night. Yeah. So that was my very first ever draft, was Revised.
Amazing. Ponty Lonti asks, do you think AFR might be the final, quote, core set experience? And do you like the idea of that? I assume you mean a set that feels like a core set. To be honest, I don't actually think AFR feels that much like a core set, but also no, because they only just brought core sets back a couple of years ago, and they have a good purpose, and the core sets recently have been great. So I sort of assume that next year is going to be a normal core set again. They talked about how AFR was originally intended to be a core set, and then they just kept getting more and more into the weeds with the mechanics and making it flavorful for D&D, and eventually they were like, all right, fine, look, reins are off. Just make a D&D set. Don't worry about making it a core set. It just happens to fill that time slot in the year where a core set would normally come out.
Yeah, was that addressed in an interview or in a Morrow Tumblr or something like that?
Yeah, it was on an official article, yeah, that it was intended to be a core set and sort of feel like a core set and power level like a core set. And then they were like, that would just be a bad set. Let's just not do that. So I don't actually think that this is a core set experience, honestly. I think it's too complicated.
It's not a core set, right? It has, you can tell there's some cards where it's like, oh, they could have put another word on this, but instead they just adjusted the stats or something. There are some cards in the set where yeah, okay, this is like a core set feeling sort of card. But mostly, yeah, it feels just like it's a D&D set, and it's like an expert level set or whatever, like a regular expansion. And but I remember thinking that it was going to be a core set right up until this question. Basically, I'm like, oh, I've just been drafting this set regularly for the last couple months, and it's not a core set. But I also think that where maybe they've it seems like at Wizards there's some tension between the people who are okay, core sets are done, we don't need them anymore, and the people who are actually core sets are important, we need them back. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years they settle into a balance where it's there isn't a core set every year, there wasn't a core set this year, but I think they want to have core sets on the shelves of the LGS. I think that's smart. If you can always be able to sell a new player 6 to 10 or a box or whatever of packs of core set and have those cards be still relevant in standard, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Penultimate question here from Peregrine Kibble says, what is each of your least favorite parts of Magic's rules or systems for flavor, gameplay, or whatever reason that you might like?
It's just the lands and spells situation from day one, right?
Yeah, I think that's...
Yeah, every set seems to have at least one mechanic that's trying to address it. Cycling addresses it, right? You have a 6 mana creature that obviously it has the stats of 6 mana, but you can also pay 2 mana to discard it and draw a card. So if you're low on mana, you cycle. If you're high on mana, you cast it. And there's a ton of different abilities throughout Magic's history that address getting too many lands. So yeah, this is basically everyone's least favorite part of Magic's rules and systems.
Yeah, no, full agree. It's the feelest bad feel bads in Magic the Gathering is not having the mana you need to cast spells or getting flooded, right? It's no way to lose a game of Magic the Gathering. However, I will take those wins when they happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you gotta. It's the only way to try to claw back at feeling better.
Yeah, I'm not going to feel like a pro player doing it, but we count those.
Yeah.
It's not like, haha, I'm a genius. My opponent's only drawn 3 lands. I'm the greatest player ever.
Yeah, but it's okay, I'm going to collect this prize pack but last week it was my turn to lose because I couldn't cast any spells. So,
Yeah, exactly.
or I didn't draw any spells.
Magic players are like, yeah, no, that happens, and it happens to all of us, and it sucks. But we just deal with it. It's like, well,
Yeah, no, it's a good moment to acknowledge that it does kind of suck, and like the game designers keep trying to make it suck less, and all of these mechanics that deal with mana problems have worked to lesser and greater extents over the years, and there's some really good ones. Mobile dual face lands are another one of those, right? And those are pretty fun. I think people mostly like mobile dual face lands. I like them.
Mm-hmm.
Flavor wise, I don't know. Like they fixed combat damage going on the stack, and like if they were to redesign Magic, like would they include the stack, or would people just take turns playing spells and having spells resolve?
Oh, I like the stack.
I mean, the stack's cool, but it's also like a thing you have to explain to new players almost every time, right? And it tends to come with some confusion, but it's part of the game, right? It's like how counterspells work and why blue exists. But I guess I've explained it a lot, and some people are stymied by it, so I sympathize.
no, fair.
I do like Mark Rosewater's idea to, sort of like if it could be torn down and started again, then you would have the super type of instant.
Right. Or flash. Flash would exist, but
I think it was instant that it would be like instant sorcery, and then a creature with flash would be an instant creature.
Oh, I see. Okay, sure.
And then flash is no longer an ability.
But yeah, between flash and instant, you drop one of them, right?
Yeah. And you make it into a super type. That'd be neat, but that doesn't bug me. That's just sort of like, it feels a little clunky, I guess, because then it means that you have to say instants and sorceries on all these cards, that instant or sorcery. There's no catch-all term for instant and sorcery, right? Because it's non-creature also includes like artifacts and enchantments and things like that, and planeswalkers. But just cards that care about whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it would just be sorcery, not caring if it is an instant sorcery or not, right? That didn't sound right because I said the word too many times. Anyway, let's move on to our final question. Speaking of letting your opponent get mana, as you were talking about the lands v spells there, from Tao the Monk, do you bolt the bird?
Please no, please no.
Every time.
No, my bird. I only kept a one-lander.
My avian son. I mean, that's why, right? Like, I mean, certainly in draft. Like, I think that this is more so talking for constructed, but I feel more compelled to do it in draft because sometimes the opponent will have kept a hand that is loose, maybe only has one land, or maybe doesn't have the right colors of land, because they're like, well, I'll be able to get there because of this mana dork. And if you kill the mana dork, they might just not do things for several turns.
My bird.
I guess, should we explain what Bolt the Bird is, for just in case it's unclear? I know it feels like it's ingrained to us.
Yeah, what's a bolt and what's a bird?
Okay, well, bolt in this case is lightning bolt, which is just deal 3 damage. In the case of the phrase bolt the bird, it can refer to any kind of burn or removal spell that you point at a bird, which originally was Birds of Paradise, a single green mana 0/1 that taps for any color. But again, bird can just mean any like 1-drop creature that taps for mana. Happens that Golden Goose is also a bird, so it works out well that they gave us a new bird to bolt. But even the Land War elves, even if someone goes Forest Elves and passes the turn, you still hear people say bolt the bird, which is perhaps an awkward one for new players.
Right. It's like shock the elf a lot, or shock the goose.
Yeah.
And I think the real answer is like, the question really comes up, or the saying comes up about turn 1, right? The opponent has the first play of the game, and they make some sort of green mana and make some sort of 1 mana accelerant creature, and then you on your turn have red mana available, and you have some sort of 1 red mana removal spell that could target the face. Then that might be your plan. Like you might be on a burn deck, or it could target this creature, or if it's lightning bolt in particular, it might be able to target a better creature down the line that like might kill you, like some sort of 5/3 or 9/3 legendary creature from Dominaria. But instead, you're just going to remove your opponent's mana and try to prevent them from doing it. And yeah, as you said, they might have kept a 1-lander, and then their whole game plan is hooped. On the other hand, they might have like 6 little lands in their hand, and they're just going to play their threat 1 turn later, and you're still going to be out that bolt. In draft, if you only have 1 bolt in your deck, it's like a little bit more tenuous whether you make that decision to stop their mana or try to stop their threats. And it's the same with counter spells or any removal or bounce spells, the answer should be more flexible while you're playing. But on turn 1, if you have plenty of access to burn spells, usually you do spend 1 stopping their mana.
You bring up a good point. I guess it is Stomp the Goose right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're about a month out from both of those cards rotating.
But definitely do stomp geese wherever you see them. I mean, don't, because that's illegal in Canada.
And the goose would probably kick your ass.
Yeah, they'll F you up.
Yeah, that's true too.
But you can stomp on over to Card Kingdom and get your own geese.
There we go.
cardkingdom.com/LRR. Thank you for your continued support of our show and our horrible segues into telling people they should buy their cards from you.
That was a fantastic segue, and I will stomp anyone who disagrees.
Well, thank you. You can be the giant that I bring in after the stomp.
If you'd like to be a giant in our eyes, I recommend heading on over to patreon.com/loadingreadyrun, where you can support us for a small monthly contribution. We really appreciate it. You help keep the lights on and keep us making terrible segues.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for this Q&A episode of Tap Tap Concede. Thank you all for your questions. Sorry if we didn't get to all of them. I have been Graham, joined by Nelson and Cameron.
I was Cameron.
James ran the card reader. Jordan edits these. Heather gets them online. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.